Okay, welcome everyone to another update. Today is it's Friday, November 13th, and let's get right into the update. I might have to make this into two parts because as I was doing the research, a whole lot came up. Okay, and I don't want to make the videos too long. I know on average the videos for the updates are usually about 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how the market is going or depending on what needs to be explained and things of that nature. Okay, so I think I might have to just kind of extend it, but I'll cut it into two parts. I'll try to make it into two parts. So let's get right into it. All right, so of course, always check to see if the research has been completed. If you're part of the network, this is what you're going to get access to, this daily financial market report. Okay, we do have a WhatsApp group now, guys. I'll place that on there as well. So if you guys are interested, you can join the WhatsApp group. That's back online. All right, so make sure that's research is completed. When you see that, that means everything on here is good to go. Another thing I want to say too, I know there's a lot of questions as far as understanding how this works, how to read the report. I will make a separate document and it's going to be an explanation on how to read the analysis. Okay, especially if you're new to this. Those of you who are not new, you're used to it, but there are people who are coming in every day, 10-day trial members, just different kind of members going in and out of our network. So I will have a video corresponding to a document that you can actually not only read and understand what it's about, but I'll be making videos that will correspond and explain to you how to read this report properly so that you can know which direction you want to go with the information that we provide so that you'll be able to make the right choices in the market. And another thing is I will start doing the stock market report. I won't add it onto this. It'll be something separate. Okay, I actually might make that public. I'm still deciding about that. More than likely, I might lean that way, but it will definitely come out. So guys, definitely stay tuned. Look out for that as well. So let's move on to the report. And this is very, very interesting and exciting week. Okay, now I'll scroll, but I'll also talk about what's going on with the market as it corresponds to these assets, as it corresponds to these trades, so that we'll understand exactly how to understand the report and how to make the right decisions in regards to the direction the market is going, etc., etc., etc. So Australian Canadian dollar, very resilient, you guys, and I won't spend too much time right now talking about the futures market, but it has a lot to do with the futures market. All right, especially if you're going to do long term, the futures market, you want to know which currency is the strongest and which currency is going through problems and which currency is being sold off long term, CMV. That'll help you pick the right currency pair. I'll also talk about that as well, but I'll have to talk about that in the next video. So Australian Canadian dollar, we see that still going on. Australian dollar versus Swiss franc. The stress caused this to go into a new trend. You'll notice a pattern as well. Pay attention to the patterns, especially on current market movement. You'll notice a pattern, and the pattern is like this. After 4 days, a new trend forms. On average, after 4 days, a new trend forms. So you can place it into the 3 to 4 day category. And that is exactly why I mentioned if you take a trade, let's say you place it on Monday, you take it on Monday, you want to keep an average of maybe 3 days to be safe. So you got Monday, Tuesday, then Wednesday, you collect. If you place it on Tuesday, you got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you collect. If you place it on Monday, you want to go up to Thursday, that'll be 4 days. Okay, on average, you'll see this pattern even on this report. You'll see that. current market movement pattern. Now, I did something yesterday. I placed some trades on an account, real small lot sizes, because I needed to show you guys an example, a visual for those of you who come into the market at later times and are expecting to see some kind of results. That all of that, again, it starts to diminish when it gets into the fourth day. So there's another thing I want to talk about, and I'll mention that as well. Those of you who will notice that some of these patterns extend past the fourth day into the fifth day. That leads into another concept of current market movement, but I don't want you all to really practice bringing your trades over to the next week with current market movement. And I'll talk about that as to why that is, why you shouldn't do it. Number one, not a really good habit to form if you're doing current market movement. That's the first thing. Current market value, yes, absolutely fine. You can have it cross over week after week after week. That's the whole point. But current market movement, don't want to get into that habit. Okay. All right. So let's continue on here. The new trend also with the Australian dollar versus Japanese yen. The stress, it gave way to the stress on the current market movement. We see some stress with the Australian dollar versus New Zealand, trying to push it upward, but we see there's stress with the Australian pair that is being sold. Okay. All right. So we see here stress that's being sold off with a new trend. There was stress here that ended up being sold off with a new trend, and there's stress here trying to make it into a buy. But again, the Australian dollar is being sold off. There's a lot of stress on the Australian dollar by itself, as well as the New Zealand dollar. I'll get into that when we get there. But here, another thing, okay, ongoing, we saw that buckle down to the US dollar, but that actually might change. The Australian dollar versus US dollar by next week. I honestly believe that. I honestly believe that the CMV will eventually just take over. And I'll talk about that when we get to the last part of this report. I'll go into the dollar, tell you guys where the dollar is going, what's going on with the dollar, etc., and what we project will be the next move with the US dollar long-term CMV. Okay, let's keep going on here. Canadian dollar versus Swiss franc. We're still going on that. We're seeing that still that's being sold off right now. And the reason that's being sold off, again, I'll tell you this. The Canadian dollar is associated with oil, the U.S. oil. So we do see U.S. oil prices starting to drop, taking effect into the market. Therefore, the Canadian dollar is also following suit. It's also being affected. So that's one of the reasons why we see that stress marker take place. So always remember, if you decide to invest in the Canadian dollar, keep in mind it is associated with the oil industry, particularly the U.S. oil. Keep that in mind. When you see that U.S. oil price is starting to drop, always, close to always, you'll see the Canadian dollar do the same thing as well. All right. Very important to know that. A lot of people don't, but I'm telling you right now, that's how that pattern goes. All right. Canadian dollar versus Japanese yen. If I'm talking too fast, I apologize for that. Keep these videos as study tools. Study tools. Get access to our network. Get the Win Docs. Get the Win Drive, especially the Google Drive. That's what I meant, not Win Drive. Google Drive. Okay? Get Google Drive access. All right? Study, study, study. Study. Canadian dollar versus Japanese yen. All right? We see the same thing going on there as well. That one might be a little choppy, but I honestly will take the long term on the Canadian dollar versus Japanese yen, guys. All right. This one's interesting. We have a switch position on the Swiss versus Japanese yen long term. Okay. This one is actually very choppy. I should have actually put that on there. This one is very choppy. There's another one that's choppy, and that's dollar versus Japanese yen. I'll talk more about that. A lot of these Japanese yen pairs are extremely choppy because we're seeing a long-term stress taking place in the futures market with the Japanese yen currency. So if the Japanese yen gives way to this stress, just the currency by itself, and it'll start to follow suit like the US dollar, then of course we know what to do. Unfortunately, doesn't look too good for the Japanese yen. I got that part. But as far as an investor, we know which moves to make, because now we know, oh man, sell off the Japanese yen and let's make profit. That's how we look at it, guys. All right. It gave way to the new trend on CMM for Swiss versus Japanese yen. Euro versus Australian dollar. We're still doing good on that. These two are definitely bullish. A lot of these pairs are bullish long term. You're going to see a lot of volatility with a lot of these pairs, because a lot of them are bullish. Some are bullish, more bullish than others. I'll bring the futures report back onto this so that I can explain where we're going, especially for those who are going to take current market value. I've mentioned it before. I'm a current market value guy because I got so much to do. The only time I actually look at the market every day is because I'm doing it for you guys. In fact, some of you guys remember that's what I used to do at the beginning. Then I went into just twice or once a week, okay, because of the workload. But I'm back again, and I'm back with the old school Forex Helper daily financial market report. More better than ever, actually. I wasn't even given the financial market reports when I first started, but I gave daily updates. So now that's what you guys are getting. You guys are getting the benefit of the research and the dedication, and it's going to turn into profit, especially if you hang in there. Guys, I want to talk about the current market value. Hang it in there, especially on the next video. I won't go into it now. Weathering the storm. When you see stress, that's a storm, guys. A storm. Whenever you see all these, remember at the beginning we seen all the fire there. Remember when we looked at the at the beginning of the week, when we looked at the account, everything was in profit. Both current market value account was in profit and current market movement account was in profit. Now, why is that? Because the MAS score was sky high. I might even bring back the MAS score, guys. I might. I should. But here, when the MAS score is high, meaning when there's like a lot of fire, as you can see, there's less fire, guys, less fire. So we see that's also an indicator of the market condition, the storminess of the market. In this case, the Forex market. Every market has their own little, storm in their profit swelling. Okay, when there's profits going up, that's the best time to get in the market, when the MS score is high. Okay, you're gonna have a lot of storms. So we got a lot of storms. Anticipate that. Don't run from that. I talk about it in my ebook. Don't run from the storm. Embrace it, accept it, deal with it. It's a part of the market. If you can't do that, then you might have to go do something else. But if you want to be in the market, and you have to understand there's going to be storms, but we got a pattern. We have a method that's going to help you endure through the storm, get out on the other side, and get your profit long term. All right, let's keep going on here. Euro Australian dollar. Okay, Euro Canadian dollar. Still got that going on with that trend. Still moving up. Euro Swiss. Now, I did put this. The stress was removed. That's because there was stress, but there's no longer stress anymore. I just put that there. And you can see there's an indicator on the days. You notice it's 5 days. 5 days. So on the fourth day, the stress came in. On current market movement, we were going to see it. Was it going to give way to the stress? Obviously, it didn't. It went on another day, not changing, not causing a new trend, kept going. So you'll see that happen sometimes as well. And that all really depends on what's going on with that particular currency, you would actually have to go into the actual news report. This is where current market movement has a lot to do with the fundamental analysis as to what is going on in the market based on that particular country. We're talking about countries here when we look at the Forex. What's going on with the Swiss franc? What's going on with the Japanese yen? What's going on with the New Zealand dollar? We're talking about what's happening with the central banks, what's happening with that country's government, or whatever is affecting the money there, the gross domestic product, etc. All these economic factors within that country, and even geopolitical factors, okay? War, we got disease, famine, all these things that play a part, and the lockdowns that bring another recession, job losses, all these things that play a part, okay? So I'm going to just remove that. I just put that there so I can remember to talk about it, really. But there is no stress anymore. It was removed, so the thing is still ongoing. Let's go on here. Euro versus Great British Pound. It's going on one day with this new trend that it had yesterday. Euro versus Japanese yen. All right. This one here, more or less, long term would be the best option for this. I'll be very honest with you. This one is just volatile in nature, but long term, we're definitely going to be holding on to the Euro versus Japanese yen as a buy. I'll start to put a little bit more notes on the CMV as I move forward, just in case there's something that needs to be said. And I did do it on the one just earlier. I don't remember which one it was, but then there's another one that's coming up also that has to be addressed. Oh, it was Swiss versus Japanese yen. That's right. Okay, Euro New Zealand, new trend. All right, so it definitely gave way to the stress, right? And here, this one's very interesting because the euro is now being bought against the New Zealand dollar. The New Zealand dollar is suffering right now. And one of the main reasons right now is due to the, there was an article that I just read. It was on Market Pulse. If I could just quickly find the article since I am on that subject matter. Let me see if I could pop that up. Okay. See here, just real quick, so I can give you guys an idea as to what is going on when it comes to current market movement and certain currency pairs. Okay, so here, Market Pulse, New Zealand dollar versus US dollar rally takes pause 8 hours ago. All right, we definitely saw that in the charts. To me, it was more than just a pause, but in a way, actually, they're right. I would say that it is a pause because long term for the New Zealand dollar, guys, I've mentioned it before earlier in the week, one of these days for these past updates, that the New Zealand dollar long term is a very great investment, guys, especially against the Japanese yen, especially against the US dollar. Very, very good investment to get into New Zealand dollar long term. But right now, we do see some struggles. In this particular article, they attributed it to the manufacturing. There was something here. Okay, but repeated lockdowns caused a recession. It wasn't really that clear. I mean, for the most part, when you go into the later part of this article, it was mainly due to the other economic factors that are taking place with the New Zealand economy. Okay, the food price index, business manufacturing index. Those are the things that they attributed to what caused the all of a sudden current market movement as of today downturn. Now, will it come back up? I honestly believe that it will, but again, in comparison, that's why all these pairs are relative to one another. It's the euro versus the New Zealand. It's the euro currency versus the New Zealand currency, or the European, the euro or the European Union versus the New Zealand government. That's really what we're looking at. So it's just, and it's relative to just whatever it's relative to. All right. So in this case, we definitely see the euro outbeating the New Zealand, causing New Zealand to really fall, cause a new trend to take place without a stressor, guys. So sometimes you won't even have a stressor, a stress indicator, which is kind of like an early warning. But in some cases like this, no warning, just boom, new trend. That happens sometimes, you guys. All right. Euro versus the US dollar. Very interesting. It bounced back, guys. So we see it definitely current market value. And that's because I'll go right into explaining why that is when I get to the dollar. This is associated with what's going on with the dollar, the United States dollar. Pound versus Australian dollar. Very choppy on the current market movement. Okay. Pound versus Canadian dollar. This one also, the stress was removed. Again, that's because, again, today oil prices started to drop. So I told you the Canadian dollar very affected by the U.S. oil prices. So we saw that although the stress took place yesterday on the 4th day of holding it, today the stress was removed because now the Great British Pound, which was going under pressure against the Canadian dollar, mainly affected by the U.S. oil prices, pushed through it because the U.S. oil prices starting to drop. Therefore, the Canadian dollar started to drop. Therefore, the Great British Pound versus the Canadian dollar just continue moving on up. The stress was removed and it's still ticking strong, now going on the 5th day. Okay. Let's go ahead and go over pound versus Swiss. We see that still going on. Pound versus Japanese yen. We see that still being sold against the Japanese yen. All right. I believe that's a short-term move, guys. I think next week the pound versus Japanese yen is going to actually just go back to the CMV. I really believe that long-term. That's because there's some serious trouble going on with the Japanese yen right now. Future trouble from the technical analysis standpoint. All right. Still hasn't manifested yet, but definitely it's there. Will it follow suit with the US dollar? Only time could tell. Okay. Pound versus New Zealand dollar. All right. A new trend. Again, I told you guys about the Kiwi. This caused the Great British Pound to just overtake that and push that aside. I think that's going to be short-lived. These two are both two very bullish currencies, by the way. So you're going to see a lot of this back and forth with pound versus New Zealand dollar. If you get into that currency pair, just be, aware there's going to be a lot of struggle. These two are very, very bullish long-term, guys. Okay. Obviously, you can see on the current market value on this one is a sell versus the New Zealand dollar. That's because New Zealand dollar is extremely bullish long term. I told you guys that would be the best investment if you want to decide to take an investment onto a currency. Great British Pound also pretty good, doing pretty well, but not in comparison to the New Zealand dollar. It's overtaken by the New Zealand dollar, causing a Great British Pound to be sold off versus the New Zealand dollar, guys. All right. Pound versus the US dollar. We have current market movement ongoing. I see this one definitely going into favor for CMV long term. Again, this one, believe it or not, I honestly believe this one is lagging. Pound versus US dollar tends to do that. It really does. Why? Current market movement is not really reflecting that the dollar is being sold. That's because we're still in the U.S. session, and U.S. session right now is very, very crazy, guys. But let's move forward. I would take this long-term, guys. CMV pound, Great British Pound, U.S. dollar. I don't see anything. Anyways, I'll let me get through this. I'll talk about the U.S. dollar when I get there. All right, New Zealand dollar versus Canadian dollar. We see some stress taking place on this. This one is so strong. Again, But there's still some stressors taking place on it, guys. But again, the Canadian dollar being sold off against it, so causing the New Zealand dollar to be a very strong buy, current market movement. And these are bullish, but for the most part, New Zealand dollar versus Canadian dollar have been very, very good long term on CMV. Very pretty decent investment to get into. This one gave in, guys. All of a sudden, you'll start to see the pattern on the rest of these. You'll see them just a quick glance. You got 0, 0, 0. I mean, you could just tell off the bat there was something going on with the New Zealand dollar short term. All right. That goes back to the article that I read. And then there's some other issues involved too. Obviously, the whole, potential recession that's coming in because of the, I forgot her name, but, she, I think Arden is her name, if I'm not mistaken. But the whole lockdown situation definitely, I believe, will play a major part in that as well. Okay. But we see that manifesting here, definitely in the market today with the New Zealand dollar, guys. Very surprising for it to even go against the Japanese yen so sharply, guys. These drops were very, very sharp and unexpected with the New Zealand dollar. But I do believe, at least with the New Zealand dollar versus US dollar, I do believe eventually it will be short-lived with current market movement, and we'll see current market value definitely take over again. Current market value take over again with the New Zealand dollar versus Japanese yen. Maybe a little questionable with the New Zealand versus Swiss. Not really that sure on that. But the rest of them are definitely more sure on those. Let's move on. Now we're talking about the US dollar versus Canadian dollar. Ongoing trend we see with this as well. Again, the US dollar, I guess I'll talk about it right now. Okay, as we have noticed for this trading week session, the US dollar has been rallying very bullish, a very pretty strong bullish rally. And now how strong will it be? Will it continue to maintain its strength in that? I mean, I don't think so. I honestly don't think so. Okay, looking at the dollar index, not for today. Don't really see that happening. All right, we'll see how the next week plays off. But on current market value, the US dollar is just getting really slammed. Okay, long term. Again, I'm a long-term investment kind of guy, so I'm not going to look at the short term of the US dollar, a short-term rally. Were we able to make some money on a short-term rally? Of course, if you got in early enough. But we have yet to see. I mean, gold is acting kind of strange too. There's a sell-off there, so there's some mixed messages there. So it's just a matter of really watching. US dollar is just a volatile currency overall. Keep that in mind. Okay, US dollar versus Swiss franc. This one's going through extreme stress. Although the US dollar is strong, showing this extreme stress against the US dollar by the Swiss franc, very interesting to see. Okay, that it's undergoing such stress. Another indicator here is the Japanese yen. Japanese yen took over the US dollar today, causing a new trend. So we're starting to see this kind of cave in and collapse, or giving in to the storm or the stress on the short-term rally that the US dollar was going so strong with. Okay, US dollar versus Mexican peso. All right, US dollar strong against the Mexican peso, which again, it's very hard for me to believe that that's going to continue. There's stress there as well. I'm not surprised because the Mexican peso is actually doing very well, considering. In fact, it's actually probably right behind the New Zealand dollar. The only thing about it is, remember, if you're going to invest in Mexican peso, it's an exotic pair, so it's going to be expensive depending on your broker. Keep that in mind. Watch your margin level percent if you decide to get that. But long term, I would definitely get that in a heartbeat. Okay, selling it off. But remember, it's going to be choppy. Just have a stomach for it. These exotic pairs. Same with the dollar versus Norwegian krone, exotic pair. No stress there. It's actually doing very good against the Norwegian krone. Okay. Let's get into the precious metals, guys. I want to get through this report so I can get to part 2. I might not need a part 2 after all, but we'll see. I do have to talk about some other stuff. So, all right, gold. All right, so we do see gold definitely taking on a new trend. We saw the gold price really jump up a couple of weeks back again after that nice rally, but again we're seeing this pressure against gold overall. And what's interesting here too is an indicator that short term gold is rallying against the dollar, which is also another indicator that the dollar could not hold its rally. Gold and the dollar go hand in hand to kind of find out where they're going, especially on the short term, guys, I would say. But the sell-off on gold isn't really that strong on the long term against the US dollar. If you want to get involved in gold, I would highly suggest you sell off against the Australian dollar or the euro. Gold versus euro or gold versus Australian dollar long term. Just be prepared for all the crazy movements, though, just to give you a heads up. Another new trend on gold versus euro. So we do see a strong move on gold. Another indicator of what's going on with the dollar. I'm going to keep this here after all because gold versus silver. For those of you who don't know which precious metal to get into, honestly, if I had a pick, it would be silver because silver is stronger than gold right now. That's what this means when you look at this, okay? Long term and short term. But silver is actually a very, very good investment, especially long term. We definitely see silver long term definitely doing a very, very nice move. Very good investment. I told you earlier in a video back, I'm not sure which video it was, but sometime during the week, that I had a case where someone, in fact, I would like to actually maybe get that market information to show you guys, but from $600 to $1,000 to $6,000 when silver shot up $14 an ounce to like 24, wherever it is right now. Insane jump. Okay, absolutely insane. But a lot of people made a ton. A lot of people made a killing on that. Okay, so I still see silver going up, guys, just like Bitcoin. We're going to get into that too. Bitcoin's going up. It's going to keep going up, guys. It's going up and up and up right now. This is the season for that if you're into that. Silver versus euro, I wouldn't really take that long term. I did put an indicator on the CMV. It is stressed. That's because they're both too bullish. It's just not worth the trouble, the hassle going into that. No way. Platinum, we do see platinum going up. New trend on current market movement. Palladium, very, very dangerous precious metal to get into. So be careful if you use palladium. Copper, new trend. We see a buy trend going against the dollar. Okay, so these precious metals that are going against the dollar, very, very interesting. Okay, here I talked about oil, UK oil. There's a stress that definitely gave way into a new trend, a sell-off on oil prices. There's a stress on natural gas. We might see that start to go down, and we definitely see a new trend on US oil, again associated with the Canadian dollar. I did mention that before. Bitcoin, guys, all right, definitely ongoing trend. Both are up, guys. If you get into it right now, you're gonna make a pretty penny, or a pretty dollar, or a pretty $100. Okay, with Bitcoin. All right, Bitcoin Cash. The stress was removed on here, so we're starting to see again Bitcoin Cash still being sold against the now being a little choppy is what I'm trying to say for the 5th day on the current market movement. Litecoin finally starting to catch up with Bitcoin, so it's also doing the same thing Bitcoin's doing, and we're seeing a nice little price rise with Litecoin. Monero struggling, but we're seeing possibly, maybe will it give into the stress of the buy on the short term and finally catch up? I don't know. I don't even know what the story is with Monero. I just know what the charts are telling me, but I don't know why it's doing that, but it's doing that. It's being sold off. And actually that's supposed to be there. It's aligned. Okay. Both sell. All right. Will it give into it? Who knows? The stress was removed on the Ethereum. So Ethereum, okay, following in the footsteps of Bitcoin right now. And Ripple, the stress was also removed. There was some stress yesterday. It was removed going on the 5th day. So we're seeing all of these cryptocurrencies, with the exception of the Monero and the choppiness of Bitcoin Cash, but with the exception of those two, all the other cryptocurrencies. So if Bitcoin, definitely Bitcoin is very expensive, guys, and most brokers. But if you decide to get into some other ones, maybe Ethereum's a little bit cheaper with some brokers, Litecoin's a little cheaper, Bitcoin Cash is cheaper, but don't get into that obviously right now. Monero, you could get into that, you can sell it off, but there is a stressor on that. But yeah, Ripple, that's a little cheaper on some, definitely going up in price. Okay, all right, let's get into the last portion. Australian 200, there's some stress there, still hasn't given way, guys, so that's pretty good. China 850, second day, going against the current market value. And here we go. Let's talk about the US dollar right now, guys. So 5th day, we can definitely see some stress now against the bullish run. Will it give in? I think so. I think that there's enough indicators. I think just like with the dollar versus Swiss franc and the dollar versus the Japanese yen and the gold versus the dollar and all of these other indicators that could possibly point to, the dollar bullish rally coming to an end. So we'll see next week for the most part. But that's what I wanted to mention. I did mention it earlier, but we're here. The DAX, we see some stress, but still showing some resilience. These markets are showing some resilience, guys. I'll be honest with you. They're showing some resilience even against the stress. Here, especially the Dow Jones, the stress was removed, guys. All right. So we'll see how things move next week with the Dow Jones, but going on the 5th day straight, stress was removed on that. The Euro stock 50 is there's stress going on against that short term, stress against this one, France. Still no stress against the UK. That was doing pretty good. Hang Seng finally gave in to the stress, guys. Another Asian market, just similar to the China A50. This one finally gave in, just like the China A50 gave in. I don't know. Is it a precursor to the rest of them starting to cave in? Only time will tell. Very interesting, though. 2 down so far. And some are fighting against the stress, okay? This one was stress removed. Very resilient here with the Italian index here. Now we got some new stress taking place here on the Nikkei 225, the Japanese index here at NASDAQ. There's some stress on this one now, guys. All right, this one's been very choppy actually. And S&P 500, very choppy, but still resilient, doing its best to maintain, going up, going up. And is it running out of steam? Who knows? Stress was removed on the Singapore, very resilient, it was able to continue to go on with the trend. And the stress was removed on the volatility index. We saw volatility starting to go up in the market, but stress was removed. Guys, I'm done with the report. I will go into part 2 because I didn't talk about the account that we placed trades on, and there are a couple of things I want to talk about that I didn't get to talk about. So I'll meet you on part 2.